Hello, this is James St. James, and in this episode we're going to be talking about the 10 bodywork fundamentals. Let's learn about the functional anatomy of the human body from a healer perspective so that we can reverse engineer intuitive healing so that we can re-engineer our body and mind to think and perform how we want. The goal of this season of Human Re-Engineering is to give you the basic sets of information that you're going to need to know in order to get on the right track in your healing process. By healing process, what I mean is a specific way of reconstructing the body tissues back into their original or fully functional state based on using strategic therapeutic procedures. Throughout the world, there are many types of therapies that can be applied to the human body. Some are more beneficial than others, some are more expensive than others, and some are preventative rather than restorative. A good example of a generally affordable, preventative, and beneficial therapy is yoga. Something you may be familiar with, as currently about 1 billion people across the world have done some kind of yoga with some hope of improving their health. Exercise training, physical therapy, acupuncture, massage, pharmaceuticals, nutrition coaching, diet programs, chiropractic, light therapy, heat therapy, and energy healing are all just few of the countless number of therapies that exist in the world. With so many thousands of possibilities, how do we know if we're using the right one that our body needs at that specific moment in time? Because of the multitude of choices between the forms of healing, choosing can be quite overwhelming. Most common healing forms are devised and applied from the perspective of the practitioner and his or her skill set, rather than centering carefully on the patient's body and the unique state that it's in. It became this way because many years of medical practice and cases have led to liability, limitations, and restrictions being mandated, thus skewing the focus towards licensure, insurance qualifications, and specific universal procedures. This, along with the high input required to make a profitable business, makes it so that practitioners have an extremely difficult time understanding or accommodating to the unique needs of each patient. For instance, if you had a specific problem with your muscle, but went to a chiropractor who needs to make realignments to your bones in the few minutes that he has with you, he's not going to go outside of his methodologies and techniques to suit your body, but will instead apply the same techniques that he was trained to do, and that also fits into the realm of appropriately mandated procedures. Some of the more professional health practitioners will try combination therapies or send you to another specialist with a different skill set. But even this is still limited in scope when it comes to the complexity of the human body. For the purpose of reconstructing the body, it is critical that the practitioner really knows the patient's body so he or she can avoid the biggest pitfalls and select the most direct route to healing. And no one can know a body better than its owner. However, this means that you will have to know a lot about your body and how to fix it, which seems like a huge hurdle to overcome to ensure that your treatment goes as planned. That's the real reason I started this channel in the first place. I saw how often people seek professional help with their health, but come back just as broken as they were before, still in pain, still frustrated, and losing money and time. So I wanted to empower people to take control of themselves and actually heal. To make life simpler and to make reconstructing the body more practical, let's look beyond the various names and forms of the healing to just 10 fundamentals of bodywork that are common among all of them. By focusing on these, we can distill any healing modality down to its basics so that we can understand the tools we have available in our bodywork toolset. Your body is your Lamborghini on the road of life. And once we know our tools, we can act as our own competent mechanics rather than entrusting our Lambo to someone who might just want to get through a full lot of cars and go home. I believe that with a little experimentation and mastery, we'll be able to create our own adaptive techniques and regimens and modify them as we go based on the results that they provide. We'll also begin to see how to distill the essential value offered by any other regimens we follow or modalities that we use. So instead of learning complex forms and routines first like we might see in yoga or Tai Chi, one can just have the 10 fundamentals in mind while they adapt their efforts to their specific issues. So let's go over these 10 fundamentals that you can use to build your own personal healing routines. 1. Static pressure. Steady pressure is the use of constant force on a part of the body. Pressure can be applied in numerous ways, either by oneself or by another person. Common modalities that primarily use pressure are massage, trigger point release, and craniosacral therapy. Applying pressure bends and compresses tissues through many layers in the body. The application of pressure can be adapted in a number of ways. We can change the amount of force used, the angle of the pressure, the tissue depth at which it's focused, or the surface area over which that pressure is distributed. Each kind of applied pressure can serve different purposes, such as moving interstitial fluids out of sore muscles, breaking apart calcifications, or even temporarily enhancing the blood flow to a particular region. 2. Applied movement. This is just a variation of pressure, but with movement. The types of movement are sliding, rolling, compressing, and rotating. This is definitely worth mentioning in its own category because it adds a lot of variation to the way that pressure can be applied. Movement can also be applied perpendicular to or along with the muscle or fascial striations, which is the natural grain of the fascia. Fascial striations are generally parallel to the direction of the fascia. Moving along the natural striation will stretch the fibers and move fluids, whereas when moving perpendicularly, the movement is more abrasive to the fibers. It's better for breaking apart scar tissue as used in myofascial release. Movement not only allows one to apply pressure to a greater area, but it also affects the vessels, muscles, and fascia in unique ways that add new possibilities when doing bodywork. Just be careful when applying movement too quickly, as it can increase the risk of accidentally breaking tissue cells, which can take additional time to heal. 3. Contraction. One of the easiest ways to get movement and flow happening in a specific tissue is to contract the muscles near it. Contraction is the fundamental element of all body movement. When you try to move your arm, for example, your brain signals your muscles to contract, which causes movement that you experience. Contraction is the most useful at the end stages of the healing process for muscle and fascia tissue regeneration. The prerequisites are that the local tissues must have some blood flow, and there must be innervation of at least the top, bottom, or belly of the muscle from the nerves. Contraction can be put to good use in a number of ways. Contraction can stimulate the flow of blood into a partially damaged tissue. Contraction can extend and flex the surrounding tissue. One can contract one area of the body to create tension to another section of the body where stretching is needed. The body works by a system of muscular counterbalances, so contraction in one place will stretch another out. And contraction can be used to trace issues in the body. When we try to contract a muscle, but it feels abnormally weak, it might indicate tissue damage within or near that muscle. If we then identify which of the 6 elements that the muscle is associated with and then look at the corresponding electrical pathway and sinew channel for damage, we can then identify avenues to repair the underlying issue. From this basic principle, we can not only use our control over our muscles to articulate fluid flow, tension, and flexion of the tissue, we can also use it in a way to trace from muscle functionality to underlying tissue damage. Number 4, stretching. No healing strategy would be complete without stretching. Stretching implies using force to extend a particular part of the body. This extends the fascia, muscles, and all components within the body and can alleviate tension. By reducing the tension of the fascia, it becomes more flexible and permeable, thus allowing for better blood flow and functionality. For this reason, stretching is a very valuable part of our health and very valuable for the purpose of regenerating tissues. Here are some example types of stretching: static, basic stretching; kinetic, staying moving while adding tension across the body; negative, moving in a way that extends the muscle with a slight level of contraction at the same time; extended stretching, which means putting the limb into the full range and then seeking to extend slightly past that limit. Then there is proprioceptive neuromuscular facilitation, or in short, PNF stretching. This is where you tense one side of the body to stretch the opposite side, thus creating a controlled and almost isometric extension. Then last, yawning, a powerful form of stretching that is often not intentional but is usually more organic, feeling-based, and directed by the subconscious, which I think is pretty cool. Keep in mind that stretching is still one component of our total tool set and should only be used at specific times. Stretching when the muscle doesn't have the necessary immediate blood flow or flexibility can actually cause more harm than good. The subconscious mind might notice these subtle differences in the tissue and seek to avoid stretching or exercise for this reason. In fact, there are many preparatory steps that must be taken before getting to the stretching stages in any well-crafted strategy. So if you don't like stretching or how it feels, then this just might mean that your mind is very aware of the state of the body tissues. So in summary, stretching is super important in the later stages of the tissue reconstruction to extend the fascial structure and return electrical and fluid flow to the damaged tissues. But it must be done with great precision and at the exact times that it's needed, else it could be either a waste of time or even detrimental to your success. Number 5, hot and cold. By changing the temperature, we can affect the blood flow and the flexibility of fibers in any particular tissue. Heat makes the fascial structure expand, leading to an increased flexibility and porosity. This causes the blood, fluid, and nerve flow to happen more easily, which can lead to improved nurturing of the deeper layers of the damaged tissue. In contrast, some fields of medical practice, such as physical therapy or chiropractic, will use cold in the form of something like ice to lower the temperature of the tissue. Lowering the temperature of tissues can reduce inflammation, which can be very useful for pain reduction and acute injuries. Cold constricts blood vessels, reducing the blood flow to tissues and tightens the fascia. For the purpose of reconstructing tissue, we would rarely use cold. When regenerating long-standing, stress-damaged tissues, we want to maintain the flexibility and porosity of the fascia. So in order to do that, high temperatures must be maintained. Plus, additional heat can allow the body's natural healing responses to fix damage at faster rates. Heat alone isn't as effective as other more mechanical fundamentals on our list, but, for example, when applied overnight to a regenerating or sore area, heat plays a significant supporting role. So personally, I like to use rather outrageous amounts of heat in combination with other fundamentals in this list to accelerate the healing process even more. Number 6, breath. Now that we just talked about increasing the flow to tissues that we're trying to regenerate, let's talk about increasing power. The way to increase power is to tap into the way that our body creates energy, which is to combine carbohydrates with oxygen. Being that not many of us are battling with malnourishment, oxygen conversion is the limiting factor. By enhancing the oxygenation of the blood, it will allow higher rates of cellular metabolism. When making strides to regenerate a specific area of body tissue, that extra boost of oxygen can help kickstart damaged cells and get them to operate once again. Furthermore, breath can do so much more than just oxygenate the body. We can use the force of the diaphragm to articulate the spinal curvature and spacing so that we can temporarily improve nerve flow to a particular or set of organs to improve functionality. This is kind of like using the pressure from your breath to flex your organ functionality. Breath is an important part of every strategy and can even enhance many other fundamentals mentioned in this list. Most meditation techniques focus on this aspect, which creates the different mental effects and the end results that breathwork offers. However, instead of remembering a number of meditation techniques, one can use their understanding of 6-element theory that we went over previously in the series to channel their breath towards a specific part of the spine associated with the element that you want to boost temporarily using the breath and oxygenation. This way, the mental and physiological response that you get will match your specific strategy by stimulating the organs whose unique healing functions you need most. Number 8, light. Scientists are still debating about how much and what kind of light the body needs to perform well. But while they're debating, let's just do what worked for the cavemen before all these illnesses pervaded humanity. It is natural for human beings to get a small but regular amount of relatively full body sunlight exposure. There's a significant amount of research on the various wavelengths of light and their effects on the human body, and from this a number of therapies and devices and treatments have been created. However, what most people don't realize is that a lot of the most helpful frequencies of light energy are already produced in substantial amounts by the sun. It is said that some of the non-visible light rays of the sun can even penetrate the body as deep as the bone. This means that by showing your skin to the sun, you are bathing nearly every cell in your body with helpful and regenerative light rays. The one note of caution here is to know your body and not overdo it, as sunburns are quite painful and can actually damage the body. Other than that, my advice would be to keep your light therapy simple, such as going out in the sun without a shirt for about 30 minutes a day. Then just do the simple thing consistently, and well, good health should not be complicated. Number 9, electrotherapy. A more technologically advanced way of changing the tissues of the body is to use electricity, such as using electrostimulation, often practiced in the field of physical therapy. It is common practice for physical therapists to use what is called a TENS device. It is a battery with 2 or more electrodes that you can place on your skin, and then when turned on will pass electricity between the electrodes. You can alter the effect by changing the location of the electrodes and also the waveforms of electricity produced by the TENS unit. There are other ways to apply electricity to the body, but the TENS unit is the most popular and works great for the electrical component of your healing strategy. By passing electricity from one place of the body to another, the electricity will flow through the fascia, muscles, and fluids of the body. From this, you can target specific muscles and use the electrical energy to create tiny, rapid contractions that your motor neurons may not be able to do voluntarily. Or you can hyperstimulate the fascial matrix around the muscles. This can be important when trying to regenerate tissues that have lost nerve function. So electrostimulation offers another useful tool to benefit and regenerate tissue. 9. Chemical therapies. This is quite an expansive topic with a lot of important specifics and awesome potential. So I'll be creating a whole season that will go more in depth, and even another episode in the series regarding the wisest use of chemical manipulation to create specific electrochemical effects produced by the organs that will allow for seemingly superhuman tissue regenerating capabilities. So stay tuned and subscribe so that you can check that out. So let's talk about chemical therapies. Ooh, sounds a little spooky. This sounds a little crazy, but it's really common when you think about it. Chemicals can be anything from vitamins to plants to pharmaceuticals and all the way to psychedelics or other controlled substances. The chemical constitution changes the way our body performs, and by adjusting the chemistry, we now have the possibility of evoking specific physiological processes in the body. This is really nothing new, as it can be as commonplace as taking protein before you go work out. However, if high levels of precision and targeting are used with the right chemicals, we can control organ outputs individually and use their combined effects to create electrical and chemical environments that are conducive for cellular and structural regeneration of the body. This is a really important point, as chemical-based therapies are often misunderstood and misused, even by the most intelligent people and the most prominent companies in the world. This leaves a lot of room to increase the overall benefits from our use of chemical intake, like diet, herbs, and drugs, especially when we consume the right chemicals that work to repair our body as defined in our personalized healing strategy. Number 10, emotional control. This doesn't affect the body tissue per se, but it is a centerpiece of the healing process that I wanted to mention. By emotional control, I don't mean something like holding back your anger, as you might have seen on a TV show, maybe how the Vulcans in Star Trek behave. What I mean is by using your brain to initiate a chosen emotion, much like how you can use your brain to flex a specific muscle. When you use your mind to initiate a specific emotion, the corresponding organ and electrical channel become activated, and then a cascading sequence of events happen throughout the body. Through this, just like the other 10 techniques of healing, it will cause significant and noticeable physiological and possibly mechanical changes that can then be used for tracing damage. When we use our minds to focus on a specific emotion, our bodies work to produce that emotion. Remember that emotions don't just appear out of nowhere. These are very intense electrical impulses generated by the organs that permeate through all areas of the body. So by learning to use our minds to control our emotional output, then we can inadvertently control the organs and all things associated with the corresponding elements. By exercising the ability to flex our emotions on demand, we can then have the ability to see things such as blockages, weaknesses, and even identify exact places of damage. Emotional control doesn't directly create any permanent changes to the body as the other things in this list, but it is still a fundamental component of tracing, which is a significant part of the healing process and something that we'll be using a lot in the future. This is a simple technique to demonstrate the feeling of using emotional control to activate a specific part of your body. This technique will further be enhanced if we combine it with the other fundamentals. Try this out sometime. First, sit there and take notice of your body posture, your breath, and try to sense all of your organs. Placing your hands on your belly and your chest might help as well. Next, think of an emotion such as fun. Bring up the memories of the most fun experiences in your life and notice your posture, your breath, and how you feel. Then intensify that feeling to be 10 times more fun. Again, notice your posture, your breath, and the feeling. Now let's try this exercise while combining fundamentals. For this exercise, let's use a chemical, maybe caffeine, assuming that it's safe for you. Drink a caffeinated beverage, wait 30 minutes, and repeat the exercise again. Here are some questions to ask yourself. Did you notice any difference between your default state and the 2 checkpoints in the first part? Did you notice a difference with the presence of caffeine in your system? Caffeine is a chemical that changes our ATP metabolism, which is associated with the fire element. The negative organ associated with this element is the liver, and the liver's positive emotion is fun. So fun and caffeine are related by the same element. Keep in mind that some people can experience the effects of caffeine quite differently, so the results could vary a lot. but hopefully we're able to experience some kind of difference. So if you tried the experiment, when you were enhancing the emotion of fun, what differences did you notice in your posture, your breath, or maybe even your organs? Did the caffeine make a difference for you? Feel free to share your experience in the comments. So now that we've gone over the 10 fundamental elements of bodywork, let's go over an example of where we combine fundamentals. This is one of my favorite examples of using these fundamental building blocks is a use of range of motion technique to help trace and resolve tissue damage. This is one of the core techniques of the healing process and is an incredibly useful tool for tracing and regenerating the body. To use one's range of motion for the purposes of tracing, simply move a limb such as the arm pivoting around the shoulder socket in a perfect circle, slowly, and notice where the movement is impeded. Where the shoulder movement cannot make a perfect circle will indicate tissue damage, and when pushing the shoulder to those points, it is common that the feeling of soreness will arise, thus further helping indicate where the tissue damage might be. Furthermore, sticking with the shoulder example, if we move the shoulder to a point where it stops and then apply some other healing techniques such as movement and stretching, especially in a circular fashion, while it is locked at that point, we can then more easily target the area of damage that is impeding the movement. The point of breaking down all possible therapies to just 10 things is so that your strategies can become highly adaptive to any situation. As you encounter higher levels of complexity in solving your stress-related issues, it will require at times more advanced strategies which no form will suffice. For as soon as you put a form or a structure to a technique, then it becomes inflexible and becomes difficult to adapt to the current situation. The human body is not structured the same in all situations, and everyone's stress pattern is unique. Because of this, we need to adapt our strategies when conceiving them and on the go as we discover more about our body and our unique stress pattern. For this reason, it is important to stay flexible in our approach by understanding the 10 fundamental techniques for creating change in the body. From this, I hope you have a better understanding about what things you can actually do to change the state of your body and your health. Because with just these 10 things, we can encompass every healing modality and more so. We can create and articulate our own healing strategies that can adapt to our personal stress pattern and along with the changing state and demands of the body throughout the healing process. With this, you now have the 10 building blocks that you need to create a winning strategy that will unlock your stress pattern and give you a fighting chance to restore your health back to 100%. See, you don't need to be some kind of fitness master or spend thousands of hours learning some exercise forms to have perfect health. You just need to know how to apply these 10 basic things in the right way at the right time in an effective strategy, and your potential will become unlimited. Giving you the tools and the strategy you need to fix the damage in your body is the purpose of this entire channel and is why this episode is critically important to your path to wellness. So if you want to learn more, continue to the next video or subscribe to this channel and get updated when I have more information to share with you. To better understand how and when to apply these 10 techniques, however, we're going to need a further understanding of how the body works. If you want to learn more about the body and mind, then feel free to check out the other videos in this channel or subscribe. And if you have a question about anything, then drop it in the comments and I'll do my best to answer it. I'll see you in the next video.